Why do we forget almost everything we dream? You wake up, and for a second, the dream is still there. You can feel the room you were just standing in. You can feel the conversation you were having, the face of someone who said something important, the reason you were running. It is all still warm. You lie still and think, I need to remember this. And then you reach for your phone, or you sit up, or someone says good morning. And by the time you try to describe it, half of it is already gone. Not faded slowly, gone. You are left holding a few broken pieces, a color, a feeling, a single strange image with no story attached to it anymore. So where did the rest of it go? Because a few seconds ago, that dream felt like an entire world, a place with rooms, people, sounds, a plot that made sense while you were inside it. And now, standing in your kitchen, you cannot even tell someone what happened in the first 30 seconds.
This is one of the strangest gaps in your own mind. You do not lose your childhood like this. You do not lose yesterday like this. You can usually hold on to a conversation from an hour ago long enough to repeat it. But a dream? Something your own brain built in extraordinary detail just minutes earlier, dissolves faster than almost anything else you experience. Why would the brain spend all night constructing entire worlds only to erase them before you are even fully awake?
The easy answer feels obvious. Maybe dreams just fade like any other memory, only faster. But here is the strange part. Dreams may not be forgotten the way you think. Forgetting usually means something was stored and then lost. What may actually be happening with dreams is different and stranger. Many of them may never be fully stored in the first place. The dream is not disappearing from your memory. It may never have fully entered it. To understand why, you have to understand what memory actually requires while you are awake. Memory is not a recording device sitting quietly in your skull, catching everything that happens to you. It is a process, and a demanding one. For an experience to become a memory you can later retrieve, a few things generally need to happen. Your brain needs to pay attention to it. A region deep in your brain called the hippocampus needs to help bind the pieces together, the sights, the sounds, the emotions, into a single retrievable event. And later, often during sleep itself, that memory needs to be consolidated, strengthened, and filed somewhere more permanent. Skip any one of these steps and the experience can slip away, even if you were technically present for it. You already know this happens while you are awake. You have driven a familiar route and arrived with almost no memory of the drive. You have listened to someone talk while your attention drifted somewhere else, and afterward, the words feel like they never really landed. Encoding a memory takes cooperation between systems, and that cooperation can fail even when you are fully conscious. Now take that fragile process and put it during REM sleep, the stage where most vivid dreaming happens. During REM, your brain is remarkably active. Brain scans show regions involved in emotion, imagery, and storytelling lighting up in ways that can resemble waking activity. This is why dreams can feel so immersive, so emotionally real, so detailed while they are happening. But activity is not the same as encoding. And several of the chemical systems your brain normally relies on to lock experiences into memory behave very differently during REM than they do while you are awake. Levels of noradrenaline, a chemical involved in alertness and memory formation, drop sharply during REM sleep. Serotonin activity also changes. These are some of the same systems that help stamp waking experiences as significant enough to remember. When they are suppressed, the brain can still generate an extraordinarily vivid experience, but the machinery that would normally file that experience away for later is running at reduced capacity. You are essentially watching an elaborate film, with the recording function partially switched off. This is also why the moment of waking matters so much. Sleep does not move through REM in one long, unbroken block. It cycles. You pass through lighter stages, then deeper stages, then back up into REM. Over and over, several times a night, with the REM stretches usually growing longer as the night goes on. If you surface out of one of those cycles naturally, drifting up through lighter sleep on your own, dream content tends to survive a little better. If an alarm rips you straight out of deep non-REM sleep instead, there may be nothing left to recall at all. Not because nothing happened, but because you were pulled out of the wrong part of the cycle entirely. Wake directly out of REM though, and there is often a brief window where dream content is still accessible, which is why dreams can feel so sharp in the first seconds after opening your eyes. But that window appears to close quickly. Attention shifts. The room asserts itself. Waking thought, with its very different chemistry, takes back over, and whatever wasn't already anchored during the transition tends to dissolve almost immediately, the same way a hypnagogic image at the edge of sleep can vanish the instant you become alert enough to notice it.
This is why people who chase their dreams on purpose tend to fixate on that narrow window instead of the dream itself. Lie still. Do not reach for your phone. Do not think about the day ahead. Stay in the exact position you woke up in and let your mind sit quietly with whatever fragment is still there before it moves. Some people keep a notebook beside the bed, not because writing is magic, but because the act of reaching for it, focusing, and putting words to the fragment forces a rushed version of encoding to happen before the window closes. None of this stops the forgetting. It only races it. And most mornings, the forgetting still wins.
Here is where most people get the story wrong. It is easy to assume that some people simply have bad dream memory, the way some people have a bad memory for names. But that is not really what is going on. Nearly everyone forgets the overwhelming majority of their dreams every single night, regardless of how sharp their memory is in waking life. People who report vivid dream recall are not necessarily remembering more of the dream. They may simply be better at capturing the fragment during that brief post-REM window before it dissolves, through habits like lying still, not moving, or reaching for a notebook the instant they wake. The forgetting is not a personal flaw. It is closer to a universal condition of how the sleeping brain is chemically arranged. You are not bad at remembering your dreams. Almost no one is good at it, because the system was never fully built to hold on to them in the first place. There is something almost humbling in that. Every night, your brain may generate hours of experience, entire environments, entire relationships, entire emotional arcs that exist nowhere else and never will again. Most of it is built, felt, and then lost, without you ever choosing to forget it, and without you even noticing the moment it slipped away. You do not mourn a dream the way you would mourn a memory you knew you were losing, because by the time you realize it is gone, there is nothing left to compare it to. The forgetting erases its own evidence. You cannot miss what you no longer have any trace of. You cannot grieve a conversation you no longer know you had. You cannot search for a room you no longer remember entering. The loss is invisible by design. Not because your brain is hiding it from you, but because the part of you that would notice the loss was never given anything to hold on to in the first place. Zoom out far enough, and this stops being just a fact about sleep. It becomes a fact about what memory actually is. You tend to treat memory as something solid, something that simply happens to you, a permanent record sitting somewhere waiting to be replayed. But dreams reveal how conditional memory really is, even for waking life. Every memory you have of anything, a conversation, a birthday, a walk you took last year, went through the same demanding process dreams mostly fail to complete. Attention had to be present. Encoding had to succeed. Consolidation had to follow. Most of your waking hours pass through some version of that same filter, and far more than you'd like to admit does not make it through intact either. Dreams simply make the failure visible because the contrast between how vivid the experience felt and how little of it survives is so extreme that you cannot miss it. Think about how strange this actually is. Somewhere in your skull, tonight, a fully realized world will be constructed from nothing. Faces you have never seen will speak in voices you invented on the spot. Places that do not exist anywhere on Earth will feel as familiar as your own home. You will feel fear, love, panic, relief, sometimes more intensely than you do while awake, all generated by a brain that is, by every measurable account, asleep. And then, almost all of it will be quietly discarded before breakfast. Not saved as a low-priority file somewhere you could dig up later. Simply never filed at all. If you tried to build something this elaborate on purpose while awake, it would take real effort, real attention, real intention. Your sleeping brain does it automatically, every single night, for an audience of one, and then throws almost the entire performance away.
So tonight, you will likely dream again. You may find yourself somewhere impossible, talking to someone who should not be there, chasing a feeling you cannot name. For a while, it will feel like the only reality you have, and then you will wake up, and for a few seconds it will still be with you, warm and specific and whole. You will try to hold on to it, the way you always do, and then the room will settle in around you, and the dream will begin doing what it almost always does, not fading, just quietly failing to become a memory at all, a whole night's world, built in astonishing detail by your own mind, and gone before you have even finished opening your eyes.